Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to conclude our scholarly examination of the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. This is number 13, the very last issue. It's all reprints except for this cover. Actually, the cover is 1988, it says, and I believe this was published in 92, so maybe this is a reprint from something as well. It doesn't say. But it's a solo cover by Shelton. Pretty nice stuff. Let's check this out. We have a nice introduction from Shelton explaining where these comics come from, these reprints. I'm sorry, this was published in 1997. So, this was the first story is from Playboy. It's a special story they did for Playboy in 1974. But all the other stories were done for High Times magazine in 1977 and 1978. Except for this one story called The Plant, which is a rejected rough sketch, never published in English. So most of this stuff, unless you were a subscriber to High Times, you haven't seen. So kind of neat. A bunch of these I recognize because one of the first videos we have on the channel here was High Times Comics, and it reprinted a bunch of these Freak Brothers comics from High Times. These were collected in a book in 1978 called Thoroughly Ripped, and they were printed in color. So I would love to get that because, as you can see, they decolorized them and touched them up and printed them in black and white. But apparently the first edition of that book is important to get because it came with a game, a board game. It's a raid. And they show very tiny, they show what the board looked like. It looks pretty ornate. And I would love to see this game. So the first story is the Playboy one. The Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers in winter of '59. So it's New Year's party 1975. The Freak Brothers are at this party, and the whole theme is going back to the 50s. Everyone's dressed up as greasers or teeny boppers or, 50s people. And Franklin says the 50s were a drag. And Freddie says, what do you mean? 50s were great. And we see a flashback to the 50s when all the Freak Brothers were young teenagers. Well, I think they're in high school. We see Phineas at his parents' house. He's a total dork. He's a total nerd. And he's having a party. And he's really freaking out that people are going to mess up the house. He's really scared of his parents. Franklin's there with his girlfriend, and they're arguing, and they break up in front of everyone. And then the party gets really crazy. These greasers show up, real greasers, and destroy the house. And after thinking about this little flashback, Franklin says, fuck the 50s, let's bring back the 60s. And the whole party changes its theme. And so, free love. They break out the pot, start playing some groovy hippie music, and have a great time. I like this. Look for these wonderful 60s nostalgia items on sale soon at your local discount head shop. Peace medallion, hookah, a miniature I Ching. So now we get to the High Times comics. And most of these are gags, one-page gag comics. Pretty similar to the comics we've seen, in all these issues. Lots of drug hijinks. This is a longer one where Freddie has to get a job. It appears that every now and then one of the Freak Brothers has to get a job so they can buy stuff, buy pot. And I wish I could have seen this in color, this page. Freddy's escaping this burning room. And look at the smoke here. That's like reminds me of Rick Veitch. Just so well done. With, I think, airbrush. It looks really good. I can imagine what that was like in color. I like this one. When he imitates the Sunday Funnies, Notorious Norbert by Flegel and Fosdick. I forgot to mention, these are all art assisted by Dave Sheridan, since these are reprints from before Dave Sheridan's death. I believe this one was in High Times Comics, because I read it. I definitely read this one at one point. I can imagine that's the only place I would have seen it. Norbert goes undercover in the Vice Squad, pretending to be a female prostitute. Try to entrap them. Looks pretty good in drag, I gotta say. Phineas doesn't fall for it, though. Slams the door in his face. Freak Brothers decide to become beekeepers. This one's interesting, where Freddy is watching TV on the nice big TV set in the living room, and he won't change the channel for Phineas to watch his PBS show. So he gets the little TV, puts it on the table, and then the two TVs start fighting. And the little TV unplugs the big TV and throws him out the window. But then he falls out the window because his batteries run out. Another Notorious Norbert comic. In this one, Freddy gets a model train set. The perfect way to hide their stash if the narcs come, or the feds come a-knocking. They just throw their pot on it or their drugs, and it goes into this hole in the wall and hides. But then they have this elaborate fantasy that the train is real, and they jump on it, and they're riding it, and these bandits show up. It's pretty fun. Of course, it's all in their heads. They're very high on some really good weed. More little gags. This toned art looks pretty nice. Of course, I would prefer the color, but it doesn't look bad. In this one, the Freak Brothers decide to grow their own pot and become pot farmers. Phineas has to get a job this time. Gets a job at a VW dealership. This one I've read before. This isn't that High Times Comics, I'm pretty sure, because I read this one. The Freak Brothers change their look. And then, of course, as soon as they do, they see there's a Freak Brothers look-alike contest. $1,000 prize. And all these random Freak Brothers. There's Rock and Roll Freak Brothers, Country and Western Freak Brothers, Glitter Freak Brothers, and Transvestite Freak Brothers. And various hijinks ensue. Man, just really nice cartooning. So here's that little 3-page sketch. I'm curious if this is how Gilbert Shelton presents the work to either Dave Sheridan or Paul Mavridis as assistants. I wonder if it's this sketchy. I kind of doubt it, because you see a lot of Gilbert Shelton in the art. Then again, those artists might have been told to just draw like me. But this is pretty sketchy. Look at this. It's just like really primitive. Freddy looks like Garfield almost with his eyes there. It does say Shelton and Sheridan, but I think he probably, was planning the comic, and supposedly Sheridan would come in and totally slick this up and add all the details and stuff. So I don't know. Interesting, though. I'd love to find out how they work. I don't know if that's ever been written about in interviews or anything. Once again, they're trying to grow pot, and the pot plant goes crazy and becomes a kaiju, attacks the city. Of course, it's a dream. Now we have one more comic on the inside back cover. Just another fun little story featuring Franklin. And here we can see how the times have changed. Look for the Freak Brothers on the World Wide Web. So it's definitely a different world than the Freak Brothers when it started. And we've seen all the changes of the decades. This is it's a raid. So I assume this is the cover of that board game, or at least the introduction to it. Pretty nice painting. This is just craziness. So much to look at in here. All these hippies trying to escape this party, and the cops are running up the stairs. That's nice. It's nice to get to see it. Because, like I said, only the first edition of Thoroughly Ripped has it, so it's pretty rare. I'll probably never get to see it in my lifetime. So I'm glad they reprinted that there. So there you go, guys. I guess, once again, not with a whimper, not with a bang, but a whimper. Just kind of, it's good to see these odds and ends. I mean, most people out there don't have a full collection of High Times. So, but, they reached some heights there on their epic adventures. It seemed like the Freak Brothers were getting more and more ambitious every issue. And then I think Gilbert Shelton got tired. He just figured to put out a couple issues of just, whatever, odds and ends and light fare. But still, I mean, better than a lot of underground comics, better than a lot of comics, period. Even at his worst. Cartooning's always great. And the stories are always fun and well written. So I hope you enjoyed this look at Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. I hope it didn't go on too long. Up next, in the next few episodes, we're going to get back to just looking at different undergrounds. I got a nice new stack to go through and to show you guys. But I hope it wasn't too tiresome just sticking to one title for so long. Okay, I guess that's it for tonight's video, and hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.